Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. I'd like to test that theory. I'm Anthony.
I'm Dr. Kurt's dad.
I'm Shelley.
Welcome to issue number 347 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. Every time we record, we talk about comic books. On this week's show, we're going to talk about weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth and talk about the books that we've been reading. Whether they're new, whether they're old, we're going to talk about them there. And you've heard her voice from time to time throughout the episodes, and maybe you'll hear a laugh here and there. But this will be a proper intro for Shelley from the Peanut Gallery jumping in for our weekly review. So welcome, Shelley.
Thank you.
So here we go. We're going to dive right into it with the weekly reviews. First up for me, I'm talking about a brand new one-shot of Hellboy in Love, Black Eyes. A cozy visit with retired BPRD agents Archie and Margaret takes a chilly turn when Hellboy and Anastasia investigate the local ghost, whose once only legendary wails have been disturbing their quaint village with more and more urgency. This is done by Mike Mignola, Christopher Golden, Alex Nioto, and Clem Robbins. Love Hellboy comics, especially when it's a good one-shot. Sometimes they're really good with doing the two-issue miniseries and stuff like that, but I think Hellboy not only has mastered, multi-issue arcs, but I think the style of Hellboy comics have really mastered the one shot in which you can just jump in and jump out and you get a full story right there in one. And this is a brand new one here, Hellboy in Love, Black Eyes. They've done a couple Hellboy in Love books that come out usually around Valentine's Day. So this was sitting in the pile for a while. But this one here has a very wintry vibe as we go back to late 70s in England. And we get a little scene here with Archie, who is a former BPRD agent, who is out there just kind of having fun with the local kids, and they're making a snowman and they have a snowball fight. He's kind of perceived as like a curmudgeon type of character of like he's going to yell at the kids, but you see he's there to have fun with them and stuff and toss some snowballs back and forth. And very quickly he comes back into the house, and that's where we meet Margaret, who is working in the kitchen because they are expecting some visitors. And as you see them waiting outside their home, now I kind of buried the lead by saying this was a Hellboy book and reading the synopsis, but their visitors are Hellboy and his girlfriend, Anastasia. Anastasia working there at the company as well, alongside Hellboy and being part of the agency. Has yet to meet the retired co-workers that Hellboy had the pleasure of working with. So throughout this story, you get a lot of just real friendly, familiar vibes between Archie, Margaret, and Hellboy. And since this is a one-shot issue, I'm not going to dive into any spoilers. So everything I'm saying here is just a good setup for the ghost story that is being told. But they do a very good job. Now, I'm sure I've read a lot of Hellboy comics, but my memory, I can't remember if these characters had been in past issues, or it could very much be almost like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing where it's just like, oh, they've been there the whole time, but they're in deep secret agent mode that we've never seen them before. But for the purpose of the story, you see them enjoying their retired life, and as they're gathered around the dinner table, and very quickly they notice that they want to get down to business, kind of talking about like, all right, I know we're here, it's fun catching up and, nice dinner and everything, but let's go find this ghost because I've been hearing about this. And throughout the issue, then you kind of dip back and forth with the legend about this little ghost girl who decades prior during a war was basically for decades kind of just coming out at night and kind of hearing the cries, but there's been real no reports of anybody getting hurt and things like that. But they, ultimately it's just more of a haunting, and nothing truly bad is happening to anybody else who is witnessing these sightings. And it's not just Hellboy and Anastasia going on the mission, but Archie and Margaret tag along too. So it's fun to see all four of them go together. And this is still within the first couple pages, because with it being a one shot, they don't waste too much time to dive right into the story. But what I really like is that this issue then jumps back and forth as they split up to cover more ground. So you have Archie and Hellboy who are going for a walk, and very quickly Archie realizes that something is bothering Hellboy. And on the flip side of things, you have Margaret and Anastasia going for a walk, even though they just met. Margaret very quickly also notices that there might be something on her mind. So part of their story is kind of talking about what's going on between Hellboy and Anastasia, and I'll leave that for the readers to check out. And to give you a tease of the actual Ghost Girl as they come across her, here's a nice panel right here where Hellboy and Anastasia see her kind of drifting through the city, and kind of trying to talk to her and figure out what's wrong, what's going on. And the reason why the story is subtitled Black Eyes is because here is your look at the little ghost girl with the sunken black eyes. And I think that's where I will keep it from there. But there is an interesting connection that Hellboy has with this ghost, as they basically just want to see what's wrong. And I'll leave for anybody who wants to check out this one shot to figure out, where it goes from there. But that's the first half story setup. Really good. Not only is this a good one shot, but it's also something that I like the idea of seeing Archie and Margaret, and it does make me want to go back in to see if that we've seen these characters before or not, and or to see if they were new just for the concept of the story that they're telling. So they did enough there between in the short amount of pages to really kind of get me hooked in and interested in their story and their backstory, because we didn't get too much of their BPRD life, and but you got enough to to know that these things don't really spook them. It's an old thing, or like, all right, let's go find the ghost, and it just and I'm sure they're probably eager to kind of can't always let work go if you retire. And so it was fun to see that dynamic, and then basically ultimately being a double date is with Hellboy and Anastasia. So that was a fun one shot issue, definitely worth it. And yeah, so they knocked it out of the park once again with Hellboy in Love, Black Eyes. All right, we will jump over to Dr. Kurt's dad. What's the first one you got for us?
Well, mine kind of flow from the fact that, remember, we asked that question, what comic would you want to have if you were on a, and I said, well, kind of Nightfall was one of those ones that I thought, and so I decided I would go back and look at the full Nightfall story. It's huge. I didn't realize how much actually is tied up in Nightfall, which is a Batman story for those who might not know. Maybe one of the most famous of the Batman stories. I wish Jim was here because he's really the expert on Batman.
Yeah.
But I started it off with Batman Prelude to Nightfall. And what this is really about is showing us a picture of Batman just as we're getting ready to go into Nightfall. Batman is stretched to the limit. He's pushing himself to be perfect in everything that he does. He wants to have nothing, never fail, which is, of course, an impossibility for people who happen to be human. And so he is pushing himself harder and harder. I'll see if I can grab a picture of him here, kind of wearing himself out as he's fighting crime. The first part of the book, though, actually introduces us to the main villain who will be in Nightfall, which is Bane. For those who don't know, Bane is a person who was He starts his life imprisoned with his mom because his mom is convicted in a third world country, sent to prison when she's pregnant with him. And so he is raised in the prison and spends his life there and finally gets out of the prison by becoming a part of an experiment with an experimental drug, Venom, which makes him super strong, his reflexes are sped up. And after he breaks out, he decides he has to prove himself. And the way he decides he's going to do that is by going to Gotham City and defeating Batman, because he's heard all these stories about Batman and how he controls and owns the city. So he's going to go there and take out Batman. That's his big goal. In the meantime, then the story shifts over to Batman over in Gotham City, who is fighting more and more battles, becoming more and more tired. He can't sleep at night. He is constantly pushing himself beyond what anyone could survive. We see here get a bigger shot of this if I can get back to that picture. Oop, okay. So we have him here. He looks like he's falling apart. And Alfred keeps telling him, you have to rest, you have to eat. But he keeps going farther and farther down the line until finally he reaches the point of almost having a breakdown. He knows he has to go to get help. So he seeks out a doctor to help him out, who will become an important part of the story once we get to Nightfall. And he also begins to train a substitute for him so that he can take some time off from being Batman. And he goes and recruits Jean-Paul Valley, who is a part of the Society of Saint Dumas, a group of vigilantes who handle evil things in the world. He's been programmed mentally, and Batman believes he can break down that programming, which is to make the programming makes him very brutal, willing to kill people who are evil in the world, to assassinate them. But Batman thinks he can break the programming and turn him into his kind of substitute person. So a lot of the issue has to do with him working through all that. And so Valley goes out with Robin a few nights in kind of a different costume, beginning to learn the ropes of being part of the team. While Bruce begins to take some time just to recover. And that's when we get to the end of the story, which will transition into Nightfall, which is that Bane shows up and decides that first he has to test Batman, so he breaks everyone out of Arkham. And so as we get ready for Nightfall now, all the criminals that were in Arkham Asylum have been set loose. Batman is now having to face all of these things. And one of the things I found out, I hadn't read the Prelude book in and of itself, the trade paperback, before, and I was reading along, and suddenly it mentions the fact that Batman already knows about Venom. And I'm not sure, when I read that, it was like, when did Batman come into contact with Venom before this series? But you will get that answer in the next part of my review. But I do want to give people just a sense of how big this whole thing was. Just this section, which is the prelude to what will be the Nightfall story, covers Batman Vengeance of Bane #1, Batman 448 through 491, and Detective Comics 654 through 658. So you're talking about like 13 issues just to get ready for what's going to happen in Nightfall. So one of the two things that surprised me most are this picture of Batman, because normally when you read a Batman story or when you see him in the Justice League or whatever, he's cool, he's calm, he's collected. You get the sense that nothing can disrupt him. But in this, you see a Batman very different, who's on the edge of cracking, who's on the edge of giving up his crusade, who's ready to throw the whole thing in and turn it over to someone else. And that's not something you see very often, is that image of Batman. And then as I started to read this and look at all the parts of this series, I haven't seen like a whole series that runs through the whole Marvel universe. That's as big as this, which really just encompasses the Batman world. So it was kind of awesome to see how big this event really was in the Batman universe. So you'll get my next little piece in a few minutes.
Of course. You always have the good little teases that keep people listening to the show. Be like,
That's right.
oh, you gotta come back. You gotta stick around. So good. Shelley, if you are ready, we will jump over to your review. What you got?
Okay. So Kirby picked up a Kickstarter of Kolchak meets the classic monsters.
Ooh.
One. So he gets to meet the werewolf and Count Crowley, Frankenstein, Dracula, and Conga.
Okay.
And then I got a little picture of Conga there.
Oh, they're cool. Oh.
That's, of course, nobody believes him. Based off, obviously, the Darren McGavin Kolchak series. It's got really nice artwork. I really liked it.
Nice.
And yeah, it just goes through. You get a simple, short little story.
And how do you think it reads if somebody like for instance, I know we talked about this, I think off air, where I don't know anything about Kolchak beyond what we've talked about in the past here and stuff. Like, how do you think it reads for somebody who maybe has no idea what's going on, but just treats it as a monster story?
I think it reads really good because he does the monster of the week, which is like my favorite thing. I love that. And it totally reads like how he spoke in the series.
Okay.
I mean, same look, and yeah, just everything is just the way he talks. You can totally get that from him. And then you get a little Frankenstein's monster there.
Nice.
Who's actually the good guy.
There we go.
Which he was never really bad, even in the thing.
Yeah, except for the one moment, and he tossed that little girl into the water.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that wasn't really nice. But with that aside.
Yes.
Do they have Kolchak's boss in it too? I always love the interaction between. Yeah.
Yes, he's eating a pastrami sandwich there, I believe.
I always love the interaction between those two guys in the show.
Yep. And they're still like that. He's still, and then you will see he gets taken by Conga.
Oh boy.
Ah.
And for those, including myself, like Kolchak, is he like a detective, a hunter, both? What?
He's a reporter.
Journalist.
Okay.
He is a reporter. And he goes around trying to debunk, or not debunk, but show that these creatures are real. Okay. And the cops and his boss and nobody will believe him or let him. Even if they believe him, they're like, yeah, nobody's going to believe it. So they won't let him. Ooh, that's a cool picture.
And for those that are listening just to the audio version, this is my once a show plug to subscribe to Crimson Cowl Comic Club over on YouTube to see some examples of this.
And then I will tell you, since you guys always say who is like the writer and stuff.
Oh, yes.
The Werewolf and Count Crowley was written by David Dastmalchian.
Oh, yes. Yeah. People will know him, a very popular actor who's crossed between worlds of Marvel and DC Comics for acting both on television and in movies, as well as writing and co-creating some comic books like a Dark Horse with his Count Crowley character and stuff. So he's
Count Crowley.
Yeah, he's one of those actors that is like just kind of like the uber nerd that is also went into comics. So I
didn't know that.
Yep.
Artist Lucas Kettner. Okay. Colorist Zach Atkinson. Letterer Tom Napolitano. Cover A by Lucas Kettner and cover B by Matt Wagner and Brennan Wagner. And then Kolchak Meets Frankenstein was written by Steve Niles. Artist George Quadros. Colorist Zach Atkinson. Letterer Farron Delgado and cover by Russ Braun. And then Kolchak Meets Dracula, writer Rodney Barnes, artist Justin Mason, colorist Zach Atkinson, letterer Tom Napolitano, cover by Colton Worley. And Kolchak Meets Conga, writer was James Aquilone, artist Zach Atkinson, letterer Tom Napolitano, and cover by Justin Mason.
And all these stories are while they're all separate and stuff, do they read separately? Like it's just kind of like a...
They read separately, but he also, he was always going for the monster of the week. So he's always finding all these monsters. So, it's Kolchak. No one's going to believe him, no matter how hard he tries. And I believe there's like a second book that Kirby bought, which has more of the like stories, just short stories and stuff. Yeah. And I believe I read one of those, and they had some little throwbacks to like a Christmas story and stuff, some little lines that would bring you back to that. So you got the Kolchak plus you'll shoot your eye out kind of thing. That'll take you back. So I got to read that one though, because it's longer than this one. This was a short little 4-story. And then let's see. It was by monstrousbooks.com.
Okay.
And it collects issues 1 to 3 of Kolchak Meets the Classic Monsters.
It sounds like...
I guess the synopsis is the Night Stalker returns, and this time he's facing the legends of horror themselves. From the creators behind Philadelphia, Count Crowley, and 30 Days a Night comes a chilling new anthology from Monstrous. Hard-nosed reporter Carl Kolchak, monster hunter, skeptic, and midnight truth seeker, finds himself caught in the crossfire of myth and nightmare as he uncovers the terrifying truth behind the world's most infamous creatures. So it was very good. It was very quick, and it was great artwork. I would definitely recommend it.
I was going to say, if Dr. Kurtzstedt is either trying to be an aspiring journalist or he just wrote down that he's got to buy that, I think. So.
Yeah, I did. Yep. Actually, I wrote down Hellboy, too. So. So you're selling me on these things, man.
Oh, right. But yeah, it is good. I love the Monster of the Week premise. I wish it had gone for more than one season.
Yeah, for someone like me who hasn't experienced any of the Kolchak character and stuff, but especially with, great lineup of creators on there, but it sounds like it would be something that,
even if you don't know anything about Kolchak.
Yeah, sounds like a good entry point. So cool. All right.
For mine.
Well, that was very well done, and thank you very much. Okay, I am jumping over to my next one here. This is another wrestling comic here. I say another because over the last handful of years, both Kirby and myself would review a lot of wrestling comics, and a lot of them being independent publishing, so meaning that these characters are all just completely made up for the sake of the comic books. They've definitely had WWE comic books and AEW comic books and stuff, but what I really draw my attention to is the ones that are just made just for the comic book pages. And because of the title, it deserves the proper announcer type of voice, and you'll see once you hear the title. So I'm talking about issue 1 for From Parts Unknown. Brothers Bruno and Pietro are pro wrestlers drawn to a remote town up north where something is amiss. The locals don't take kindly to wrestlers, yet their stadium is packed with spectators from near and far to see these muscle-bound heroes toss each other around the squared circle. But there's a secret the town holds, and no one is safe. This is done by Adriano Ariganello, Daniel Cowl, J.P. Jordan, and Travis, Escarfolari. I apologize. I should have had Shelley read those names because she read all those other names very well, by the way. So here we go. This is a brand new comic because it's a wrestling comic, and I did like the title of From Parts Unknown. I thought that was just a brilliant setup for a title. So going into it, not too familiar with these creators here, so I definitely went in pretty blind. This story kicks off with doesn't waste any time. We're outside of an arena, and there is somebody who is working outside the arena to change out the posters of the events that are coming up. He's got a cart full of posters, and he's there to kind of, put up the next event that they're promoting. And very quickly, someone is there to disturb his acts. And because this is the second page, this is the good setup of what kind of story we're dealing with. In front of this poster, we see bloodshed. So whatever happened to this young person here that was just doing the advertising for the next event, somebody had some bloody violence there to jump right into the story. Our main characters here, Bruno and Pietro, are brothers. I don't know enough if these are brothers in real life or brothers in gimmick for the wrestling characters. But they're in basically in their masks and in characters as they're sitting at a diner, and they're just in for that local event, which they're on the poster for. And very quickly, there's somebody who is at the diner who notices that these pro wrestlers, that anytime pro wrestlers come into their town, that they always seem to bring trouble with them. So there's one guy that's basically just telling them, like, hey, you guys got to take a hike. We don't like your kind here. And very quickly, Bruno and Pietro, one of the brothers, at first it's just like, all right, we should just get this to go. But the other one, he doesn't want to be pushed around. He's a pro wrestler after all. So there's a fun double page, not a splash page, but both of the wrestlers basically toss this guy around, and one gets on the counter and does, this cross-body splash across the guy, and they just take him out right there in the diner. So the guy that was saying, hey, get out of here before you cause any trouble, he was the direct reason why trouble was then caused. And then there was somebody that works at the diner who is, her name is Cindy, and the manager very quickly kind of scolds her for not taking care of this before this mess happened. She's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, I didn't see you do anything, and you're the manager, the owner. So Cindy, who basically loses her job and very much says like, hey, I'm the reason that you guys are the reasons I just lost my job. So at the very least, I could need a ride. And so she kind of tags along as our story continues, as we kind of get back to what happened in the beginning of the story. This is the part of the review where I'll start to keep it a mystery, because as you read this, it's a very good one-issue setup for this. I forget if it's a 5-part series, maybe. Very good setup on what this mysterious thing that the town holds, this secret that they're talking about. But there is some sort of boss, and they're kind of reporting that kid that was taken care of in the beginning, he's been taken care of, but the boys are in town. They're talking about the wrestlers, and so we get the little tease of what this secret evil might be. And then to set up the wrestling event that he was hanging the poster for, we find out that the promoter is having a 2-on-1 handicap match in which the brothers are facing against, I assume, their local wrestling character. He seems to have a very heel type persona, being the bad guy of the bunch. But they're talking about that these brothers are basically hired to come and just be like, yep, you guys are here to make this guy look better. And when you look at these two large brothers that are the wrestlers, and they look at this, a much smaller guy that they are facing, they're just like, it's not going to be believable that this one guy is going to take out us big muscle-bound dudes. And so they're not too happy that they have to essentially, do the job and lose to this guy. But there is some backroom or backstage locker room drama between the wrestlers and this guy. I forget this character's name, the guy that they're fighting, but they refer to him as the champion, and he's very possibly known as the Golden Boy, because that's in a different font and text. So I think the character's name is the Golden Boy. So you definitely see some backstage drama between these characters. Cindy, the waitress friend, is now kind of there to kind of along for the ride, and she mentions that she wants to basically be part of the show. She's like, I don't want to be a stinking valet. I'm not going to be out, being like a ring girl type of thing. I want to go out there and be part of the show. And so she figures that, hey, she needs a new job, so maybe she'll kind of get herself into the wrestling biz. So that is the setup for all the characters. We do see, I'll say this, we do see let me just see if this was all backstage antics yet or the actual match, but there is some fighting between the people in our title match. But some things, by the end of the issue, you do get the setup for the story about what the secret is in town, why that patron at the diner was already wanting to get these wrestlers out of there. He definitely had a reason beyond just discriminating them just for their appearance as being wrestlers. But by the end of the issue, you kind of realize, like, okay, there's something here that's kind of being drawn, some kind of energy that's being drawn to this town. And yeah, since the issue opened up with bloodshed, it may end with bloodshed as well. So that'll be a nice little tease there. But what's always cool about these independent wrestling comics, and even the other wrestling comics do it too, the big name ones, is just it's fun to see these characters have bigger personalities or like kind of expand on their lives beyond their in-ring promos and the backstage hallway promos and stuff. And it's always kind of cool seeing how these gimmicks carry on. Like if you meet these people out in the wild, the real wrestlers at conventions and everything, and it's not like they're, maybe some of them, but most of them aren't there, in persona. If you go meet the Undertaker, he's actually going to talk to you. He's not just going to, just be there all stone faced or tombstone you through the table or something like that. So it's fun to see these wrestling comics where you see almost like you see their real lives where they're at the diner, but they're still in costume and still in their uniforms and stuff like that. So it's kind of it's weird to say that I love seeing a wrestling comic. I'm really interested in seeing the stuff when they're outside of the ring. But they do give you some, the actual wrestling stuff as well. So it's I think there's something there for everybody. But this was a great start here to this miniseries here from Parts Unknown, issue number 1.
All right.
All right, jump over to your next review, Dr. Kurtzad.
Well, as I said, in reading Prelude to Nightfall, I found out Batman already knew about Venom. So I decided I have to find out, where did he learn about the chemical venom that gives Bane all of his super strength? So I did find out there was a trade paperback called Batman Venom that tells us how that took place. And if you look at the cover here, you can guess how he found out about Venom.
Yes. Hard way.
Yes, the hard way. Batman in this particular comic, the trade paperback starts with Batman trying to save a little girl who has ends up in Gotham Harbor drowning. He goes down underwater to try to save her. She's trapped under a group of rocks. But Batman can't save her. He can't lift the rocks. He's too human. I mean, he just can't pick them up.
Yeah.
And so she ends up drowning, and it's like this psychological blow to Batman. How could he allow this little girl to die? And finally, he ends up going back to the Batcave, working to try to get enough muscle where he could have lifted the 850 pounds he would have needed to get her out, but can't. And finally, he decides he has to go tell his father that he just couldn't do this. So he goes to her father, who seems strangely unconcerned, and says, well, if you take these, it will help. And he gives Batman a bunch of pills. First, Batman resists it, tries to get himself up to strength, but he finally ends up taking the pills, which then do begin to give him the strength even to lift what he would have had to save this little girl. But also some other things begin to happen as he takes these pills. Let me see if I can get a picture of it here. let's see. Here he is working out with his new strength. He can lift that now that he's taking Venom. But then when he goes out to carry on his work as Batman, he begins to become more and more brutal with the criminals that he goes out to stop. He begins to dress differently. He goes out in a trench coat and a fedora with sunglasses as this new kind of persona he has to go and take people on. He can't be reasoned with by Alfred, who keeps trying to get him to stop doing what he's doing. Here we have, let's see, here we have Batman in his other persona, beating down criminals right and left. And finally, I'm not going to give you the secret, but he suddenly does something that snaps him out of it and helps him realize he's gone too far and he needs to get off this drug. So he locks himself in the Batcave and tells Alfred not to let him out for any reason, that he has to get over this. And so the rest of the story then is his struggle to get off Venom. And then if he can get off this, he knows that he has to go out and stop the people who are producing it. And we find out that the production of Venom has some nefarious things behind it, building a super army for, I won't tell you why, all of that comes out. And in this, you begin to see the dangers of Venom, the difficulty of this drug. But what will also happen when you transition back to Nightfall, especially as you get into some of the other pieces, you realize Batman hopes that he can totally destroy it, but that's not really what happens. And so if you want to know about how Batman came into contact with Venom first and how he himself was affected by this drug and knows now personally about what Bane is taking for his strength, it gives you some insight into what goes on as we enter into the Nightfall story. And so that was Batman Venom. Let me give you, I always forget to give all the authors and people credit, and it is important to do that. This was by Dennis O'Neil, Trevor Von Eden, Russell Brown, and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. So again, it's a very different picture of Batman. Who could imagine Batman addicted to drugs and losing all sense of perspective? Yeah. You get in this whole thing, I think, this whole Nightfall entire arc, you begin to see the humanity of Batman as well as this kind of dark vigilante who moves through the night. There's something human about Batman that we're introduced to as we move through this storyline. So, and next we'll get a little bit more in my last review.
All right, jumping to my last review here. Let's see here. Babylon Cove, issue number 1. Hallmark movie romance meets Stephen King style terror in this wild new graphic novel from Mad Cave Studios. Now the synopsis says graphic novel. I have the 1 issue here, so maybe I'm just late to the game and it's out already on a trade paperback or something. But I'm talking about issue number 1 here. Babylon Cove is the story of Heather, a no-nonsense career gal who returns to her picturesque New England hometown for the first time in a decade to attend a family funeral. Dennis, the all-American dreamboat who broke Heather's heart in high school, Charlie, the late-blooming shy boy who Heather never gave the time of day, and Carthon, the ancient demon with plans to feast on the flesh of everyone in town. I thought that was great because I was reading those names in the synopsis and just being like, Charlie, Dennis, and Carthon.
Come on.
This comic was done by Rafer Roberts, Joe Eisma, Marissa Louise, and Crank. Letters by Crank! Exclamation point. This is something that I love the title. Babylon Cove sounds fun, and I like that idea that they're saying that they're kind of labeling as this like a Hallmark movie in a sense. And I'm a fan of all the old teen drama shows and stuff, whether it be like Dawson's Creek and the OC, 90210, and everything in between. And I love the cheesiness of some Lifetime movies and the rom-coms and stuff like that. And then as they tease with kind of putting a Stephen King style twist on it, I was definitely intrigued. So Babylon Cove basically opens up much like the wrestling comic with a bloody first page as we just get this ancient, I should just read it because it's kind of funny. Some ancient ruins somewhere. That's where it is. Somewhere.
Somewhere out there.
And it's somebody, an assistant, who was talking to this professor, and it's just like, no, you cannot move this the totem from the case or the whatever, and he's all scared what's going to happen. And then you just see off camera, you see some blood splatter on a family picture there. That's all just in the first page, and you just get a complete opposite turn into the story, in which it is almost like a Devil Wear Prada type of dynamic with Heather, and she has this boss. It's kind of a fashion boss. I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that she was probably even mirrored after. I can't think of the very popular actress, Devil Wears Prada. It'll come to me. But anyways,
Anne Hathaway?
Say that again.
Anne Hathaway?
No, but the older
her
one.
boss.
Yeah.
Glenn Close?
No.
No.
No, it's
close.
Helen Mirren. I don't know.
Oh, also close.
I suck.
I don't know. Yep. It'll come. But anyways, that's not important. Basically, just seeing the very top fashion boss here is being very hard on the employee, and it's almost mimicking Devil Wears Prada perfectly. And very quickly, you get the backstory about how Heather's high school life was, and being the popular girl, and very cliche with being popular and going out with the high school hunk who's obviously on the football team, and prom king and queen and all this stuff. But then there was some cheating going on, and very quickly you see all that go away. And this is all just done in one page, is a little tease of just who some of these background characters are. And what brings her to Babylon Cove is the call that she gets from her mother saying that unfortunately your father has died and the funeral is soon and you got to come home. And so now all of this history and drama that we got very quickly is all going to be explored as she returns to Babylon Cove. And right there was stopping at the gas station and running into an old friend who kind of tagged along with her and her boyfriend. He would always be there like on the side, and they kind of set up the dynamic that he feels like he's the best friend that probably had the crush on her, and she never saw him that way and stuff. So you see him that he may still be holding on to some feelings. And while they're having a quick catch-up conversation, some of it good, some of it bad, she very much, you get the impression that she hates coming back here. She obviously has to be here for the funeral, and she basically wants to get in and get out and doesn't want to run into anybody. And when she finds a quick out of this conversation with this former friend of hers, the perfect way to get out of it is a distraction, because there's somebody shopping in the convenience store that he owns, and this older gentleman kind of almost starts fainting, but then he starts getting crazy, and then there's these green glowing worms coming out of his nose and all of this stuff, and there's some very supernatural horror terror type stuff happening. And it's kind of interesting where she's just like, well, this ain't my problem, and he's distracted. I'm going to get out of here now. This is my exit. So it's funny. It's just being like, that's weird, but also it's not my problem. See you later. So there is some kind of comedy in there. It's not done in like in a parody sort of sense, but almost in an over exaggerated type of way. But it still treats the actual thing going on pretty seriously. The rest of the issue here, now I'll start diving into lesser spoilers and stuff to kind of set up some of these things. So she does go to the wake for her father, and that's just when she starts running into everybody that she doesn't want to see, whether it be aunts that are just mad at her for how she left things years ago. She's late to the wake, and they're saying that she's going to even be late to the funeral. They're calling her out on her attitude and stuff. She's like, well, I just lost my father. And just like, well, I lost my uncle. And everyone's dealing with their anger and their issues and stuff. And they're still keeping this kind of mystery hidden on kind of what really went down with her exit out of town, which probably ties in with the boyfriend that, that got cheated on and blah, blah, blah. And there's somebody who is very mysteriously at the wake who says like, oh, hey, I was your dad's assistant and this and that, and I saw a framed photo of you and blah, blah, blah. So you start to get those connections to that very first page of those ancient ruins somewhere. So somebody who had to witness that scene is now found himself at the wake and the funeral, but she has no idea who this person is, and he's being very weird too. So there's some mystery going on there, and it wouldn't be a perfect dramatic story if we also didn't see the ex-boyfriend who was the star football player who has now got himself into the story as well, because apparently he's been elected mayor. So she's kind of shocked that he went on to be mayor of this town, but she very much doesn't want to talk to him, but he kind of wants to talk about the past and properly apologize. Once again, we don't know all that kind of stuff, so they're doing a very good job of just kind of showing you the dynamic between these characters, and they're clashing with each other, but we just don't know the details on what. And while in the background, there's that crazy demonic thing that's eventually brewing up in the background. But so yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave it at the moment. Definitely a lot of things I left out here, but it's very fun. It was definitely up my alley. Even if you just took out all of the demonic stuff and all of that kind of the scary Stephen King type stuff, I think I'm still invested in this because it's doing exactly what it needs to do, just to quickly bring up all of these human relationships, and so I'm very much into that story, and I just like the idea that now there's just a very comic booky horror movie thing in the background that's eventually going to come to the surface, and I still don't know quite what's happening, but this is a 4 or 5 part series, and apparently it might be out in graphic novel form as well. So like I said, maybe I'm late to the punch here, but it was definitely a good first issue, and I will have to seek out more. And yep, this is the kind of thing that's just right up my alley. It was checking a lot of boxes, and it got the drama down really well, and yeah, I don't know what else to say without going into spoilers, but Babylon Cove has that very like romance novel type of title to it, and I think every little ingredient that they pumped into this book here, I think they just knocked it out of the park, and can't wait to read the rest. Babylon Cove #1.
It's Meryl Streep.
That's what I was going to say. We're going to get hate mail now that we couldn't think of.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Just not only one of the most popular and successful actors of our time, and this and
Who's
that.
she?
What? Yeah, so Meryl Streep, a character
Never heard of her.
That's kind of parodied in this book just for a couple pages, and the whole time that was tripping up my review at the beginning. At least at this point, I'm guessing we probably won't see her again, but we'll see.
Did you have to look it up, Shelley? Because I had to look it up.
I did. Just because I never saw the movie.
Because I tried not thinking about it, and I was just going to make a review. So I don't want to have to go and edit it just to make myself look better. So I'm going to leave it as is to show that we've been fact checked here. So
we did.
Yep. Good. Thank you very much. So great issue nonetheless.
All right.
All right. One more review here, Dr. Kurtzstad.
Nightfall Volume 1, the 25th anniversary editions. They came out with those as kind of a celebration of just how important this was in the Batman universe. And what the first volume really covers is the point up to which this will happen by the end. Batman broken.
Yeah.
What's fascinating to read in this is that we open it up with really Bane is testing Batman and trying to slowly wear him down and break him. Which you'd think if Bane was all that big a deal, he wouldn't have to do that. But this is the story we have. And so you expect now he's let all these people free from Arkham. Certainly the people who are going to wear him down are, who would you expect, all you Batman fans out there? The Joker or somebody like that. But the first one he runs into is the Mad Hatter. Not usually who you think of as one of Batman's biggest villains, but the whole thing starts with the Mad Hatter. And actually, what's interesting about the first part of this is the people that Batman has to take on are not what you would call the A-list of his villains that have escaped from Arkham. There's Zaz, we get as one of the ones that he has to stop, and the Mad Hatter and the Riddler is probably the top of the list of people. At the same time that Batman is being worn down by all these people who have escaped from Arkham and is trying to keep Robin out of it because he doesn't want Robin to get caught up in this terrible thing that's going on. He wants to protect him. But Robin on his own is going out looking for Bane. And in fact, finds Bane because they realize finally that the person who's behind all this is Bane. He's the one who's pulling all the strings, making all this happen. And yet they're still caught up in the whole thing. Here's Bruce starting to reach really a breaking point in some ways as he moves through all this. And so little by little, he's being worn down by all the people he has to face. The Scarecrow becomes one of the people he has to face, the Riddler. And finally, when he's at his most tired, see if I can find this here, Bane invades Wayne Manor and breaks into Wayne Manor and lets Batman know that, yes, he knows who he is and that he is going to break Batman. So what we get is really, I think, is a pretty powerful psychological thriller story in which Batman is slowly being cut to pieces, little bits at a time, for Bane to finally finish him off by the end of the book. And you saw there that at the end, yes, indeed, Bane does break Batman. And it's not something I think most Batman fans up to that point would have expected ever to see, that someone would finally break the Batman. And so then we're left as we end this. So what's going to happen now that Batman has been defeated? Who will take up the cowl? Will Bane now control the city? These all become the questions that are part of this particular story. Again, to give you kind of a sense of the sort of scope of this, just part one of Nightfall covers Batman 492 through 497 and Detective Comics 659 through 663. So it's just a huge set of issues that just begin the story of what happens with Nightfall. These particular issues were done by Doug Mencken and Chuck Dixon were the writers, and Graham Nolan, Jim Aparo, Norman Breyfogle, and Jim Balint were the producers. And I think they build a story that up until the point that this happens, I don't think any Batman fans expected to happen. The total defeat of Batman. And just to watch the build up to that in reading this is a very powerful book, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely, with the back breaking and all that kind of stuff, it's the one of the most popular images in Batman comics, and just that alone, just because of how important it was and everything. And yeah.
So I will give you the rest of the story as we move through the next couple sessions.
Look at that. To be continued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least introduce you to them. You have to go out and read them. You can never get the full sense of these books just by having someone describe it. You have to go and to get the visceral nature of this particular arc, you have to go through it.
Well said. All right. Well, then that is going to do it for our set of reviews for this episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll do some quick plugs here for, let's say, you're brand new to the show. The best thing you can do is like and subscribe and tell a friend about the show. Comment on any of the posts that you see where this stuff is posted, whether it be on YouTube and through Instagram and Facebook by searching Crimson Cowl Comic Club. But going to crimsoncowl.com for info and original web comics. If you want to buy any of the Crimson Cowl Media comics, reach out to crimsoncowlcomics@gmail.com.
They're good.
Yes. Yes. Those are the ones that David and Kurt, your son, and David's son, David Jr., have all kind of collaborated on, many different titles and stuff like that. Then if you want the audio version of the show, Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review. If you want the full video experience, going to Crimson Cowl Comic Club over on YouTube. That is the full-on production. You get a couple extra bonuses with the videos of in the beginning of the show and at the end of the show and things like that. So it's always worth it for the video. I myself have my own comic books and art and all that stuff. So if you just go to Anthony Laatsch over on Instagram and Facebook, that is LAATSCH over on those social media platforms.
They're good too.
Hey, thank you. He's not just saying it because he's read them now. So
yes, I have bought some.
and Cartoonist by Night. I happen to be wearing that shirt here, which is you can often catch me wearing this shirt anytime. So it's not much of a coincidence. But Cartoonist by Night over on YouTube, we have, I think at this point, probably 80 episodes, if not more. I'll have to do a count because we're going to come up on 100th episode sometime this year, probably. But yeah, so anyways, the Cartoonist by Night on YouTube, myself and my artist friends hang out and draw. We bring on guests, and some of the latest episodes that should be out, especially this one, my good friend Lavi, Lavi, she had launched her first ever Kickstarter for her first ever graphic novel, and it is a lesbian romance story with dragons, and that is out there. And based on the time of this release, there will have been a trailer in the last episode, but she is opening it up to that there's going to be a certain period after the campaign ends, if it is funded, where you can have late backers as well for the graphic novel and stuff like that. So I'm still going to promote it just at the chance that maybe it still has time left in the Kickstarter and possibly get in on the late add-ons. But it won't happen unless you help fund it. And so by searching Lavi on Kickstarter, Lavi, that gets you right to it. The book is called Dragon's Keep, but once again, Lavi, Lavi, takes you right to there and everything. And our most recent guest that we just had at the time of this recording was Emily Mata, and she is actually I have it here yet. She's the creator of this adorable little comic strip character, Dewey, who is this little earthworm. Dewey the earthworm has Dewey's Adventures, the comic strips here. This was a Kickstarter, her first Kickstarter that was funded, I think, last year. Yep, last year. And we just had her on the show and talking about not only that and her artistic journey and career, but also that very recently she was awarded as an official comic historian. So she won an actual award for a paper that she wrote and talking about women in comics and the importance of all that. And so that episode over on Cartoonist by Night, we had two good back-to-back episodes right there, and I think that will complete the Cartoonist by Night promo. And the last thing that we'll always keep talking about here is that our late friend Kirby had Under the Cowl of MS. If you go over to YouTube, there's hours upon hours of content there, learning about his life as well as comic book reviews, unboxings, and showing off art, and just so much stuff there. So to honor his memory, to continue to promote that, please check out Under the Cowl of MS. And I think that is going to do it for all of the plugs. Thank you, everyone, for checking it out, and obviously for you two joining us here today, as well as Shelly with her joining in with the weekly reviews. Thanks again, Shelly.
Thank you.
Yes, and that is going to do it for this episode. This whole time, I've been only sort of amazing.
This whole time, I've been doing some counseling for Bruce Wayne.
I've been trying to tell people the monsters are real.
To be continued.
Everybody take care, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.